again for spending part of your busy work week with us. I'm guessing that many of your offices are a little more colorful this week with those beautiful bouquets of flowers or extra chocolates around from yesterday. We do hope you had a lovely Valentine's Day. We have a full house and a full agenda today. I'm here with Chuck and Jason. And Jason's going to walk us all through the things that can be done with a web browser now through ACEweb. As Jason shares these things, I'll be watching for your comments and your questions. So just type those into the chat window and we'll get those answered. And remember, we will be taping this session. And you'll all have an email from me tomorrow with the recording included. And as always, we'll post this to our webinar archives as well, so you can go back to review the recording and the PowerPoint slides. And Jason, I know you have a lot of things to share, so I'm going to just turn things right over to you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, we do have a lot to cover. I think World War III has just about stopped here. For those of you that don't know, ACEweb headquarters is just a hop, skip, and jump from the Fort Riley military base, and they are testing some new artillery today, and it's shaking the whole cabin. So that's been kind of a fun last hour. All right, so a quick look at our agenda for today. We're going to talk about what staff web access actually is, the features that you have when you install this module. We're going to show you how to set that up and how to give access to your staff to the feature. And then we're going to talk about the differences between the staff, student, and instructor features throughout this process. And again, as Sharon said, if you have burning questions, don't hesitate to go ahead and put them in the questions box. And if it's one that is relevant to the current thing that we're talking about, so you can interrupt and we can answer it then. Otherwise, we'll have some time at the end to address your questions. So without further ado, what is staff web access? So what this feature or module is going to do, it's going to give your staff access to a number of things through a web browser, through your ACEweb website that you would normally have to have Student Manager access to do. So you're going to be able to view and create name records. You're going to be able to log into a student record as if you were that student. So you're going to be seeing the same thing that your students see when they log into the site. However, you're not going to need their password to do that. You're going to be able to look at their student registration history, and then you're also going to get benefits of viewing course information, viewing rosters, entering grades, and attendance, which are all primarily things that instructors have been able to do for a while now on ACEweb. We're now granting those options to your staff as well. So kind of an aside here, one of the benefits that I think this is going to present is if you do a lot of support over the phone with your students and you're trying to walk them through a process on ACEweb, how do I log into my account? I can't figure out how to update my address. I'm having trouble logging in and enrolling in this course. What this is going to allow you to do is log in at the same time as that student and guide them through kind of step by step, seeing what they're seeing. So it's a really neat feature, and I think it's going to help a lot of you out. So setting staff web access up. First and foremost, you are going to need to upgrade to the latest version of ACEweb. So if you're on the Fox Pro version, that is 3.5048, and SQL is 4.0048. If you need to find out what version of ACEweb you're currently running, you can just bring up any page on your ACEweb site and just replace whatever is at the end of your URL, preferably right after the wconnect / and just put about.awp in there and hit enter, and it will tell you, as you can see on the picture on the left, what version you're currently running. So if it's less than 048, you'll need to get upgraded. If you need assistance upgrading, definitely get with your ACEweb technician, and we will be happy to help you with that. So continuing on setting up staff web access, you're going to need to provide your staff members that you want to have this level of access to with an ACEweb access level in your password maintenance screen. So in Student Manager, you go to Tools, Password Maintenance, and then you click Find, and you select the user that you want to grant access to, and you want to make sure that their ACEweb access level, which is, I don't know if you guys can see my mouse or not, but this option right down here, You want to make sure that that is set to the minimum level that is specified by the next setting here. Oh, and again, you do need to be an administrator to access password maintenance. So if you're not in the administrator group in Student Manager as a staff member, you'll need to have your SM administrator actually make these changes for you. So this ACEweb access level right now in our example, we have it set to a 4, corresponds to an ACEweb INI setting called Manager Web Level. Your ACEweb INI is accessed through your ACEweb administration pages. So again, if you have no idea what that is, get with your Student Manager administrator or your ACEweb technician, and they can help you set this. So this setting here corresponds to the minimum level that your staff is going to need set in password maintenance to be able to have access to this staff web access. So once you've got your access level set, you're going to want to send out a link to the staff web access login page to your staff members. That way they can bookmark it in their browser and have an easy cut to it. We've also configured this so that you can modify your existing templates so that when a staff member is logged into ACEweb, it actually shows that maybe up on the top header bar or something like that. It'll show the name of the staff member that's logged in, and then that name becomes a link to the manager web page. If you do need assistance getting that set up, again, get with your ACEweb tech and we'd be happy to help you set that. So once your staff member is all set up and they click that link that you gave to them, they're going to be presented with a login page just like this. A lot of you may be familiar with this because it's pretty much the same routine as logging into the administration pages themselves. And again, it's going to show you what access level that you need to be able to log in. And you simply put in your student manager username and your student manager password, and that's going to log you in officially to the web access page. Now, some important things to mention. If you think you have this all set up correctly and your staff member goes to log in and they get a message that says log on was canceled or disallowed, what this means is the manager web level INI setting is probably still set to the default, or it's blank, or it's set to 0, which is basically disabling the staff web access feature. The other message that you might get is access denied when they try and log in. Now this is because their student manager password maintenance screen, the ACEweb access level that's set on their profile is not of the level or higher than is specified in your manager web level. So those are the two most common things that you might run into in getting this set up. So once your staff member successfully logs in, they're going to be presented with this landing page where you show some of the first options here. It shows who's logged in. So as we can see in our example, we're logged in as staff, Chuck HAV. And the options showing here, we've got look up student, create a student account, look up the course or view rosters or instructor options, or view the ACEweb staff calendar. Now, if you don't have the ACEweb staff calendar, you're not going to see that option there. Very handy module. Get with Chuck or Sharon, and they can get you set up with that. So let's take a closer look at some of these options. We'll start with looking up a student. Once you click that look up a student link, you're going to be taken to this lookup page. It's similar in a lot of ways to the student lookup in Student Manager, but it's also different in some ways. For these first two options here, they're going to use a begins with on partial matches. So you can't use a portion that's contained in the middle of someone's name, but it will obey the begins with operation to be able to look up a name. You do need to enter names, last name, and then a space, and then the first name. So for Chuck Havlicek, we're going to put in HAV, put a space, and then the first couple letters of his last name, or I'm sorry, his first name, and then you can hit enter. And that's going to be enough to find all of the Chuck Havliceks or Charles Havliceks in our system. Same with the firm field. You can put in just a begins with. So if you don't know the full firm name, but you know what it begins with, just put in the first few characters, click the search button or hit enter, and it's going to show your results. Now, if you do need to have more control or do a more particular search, there's a custom criteria option, which is where you can get really nitty-gritty and put in some custom SQL phrases that will really be able to search through your database. So in our example here, we want to find all records that have aceware.com in the email address, anywhere in the email address. And so you can search through that, you can use that syntax to greatly refine your search results. So once you get to that page and you are on the results, or you haven't searched for any results yet, you'll notice there's a whole bunch of buttons and options that you can set. And I will mention here that you don't need to really memorize what all these are because they're not labeled on the actual page, but we do give you an actual, let's see if I can bring up an example here. So if we go to look up student, and we're gonna log in as Chuck. So on our lookup name page, there's this lookup name lookup instructions, which you can click, and it's going to bring a drop down that gives you all of the cheat sheet, the legend, the information that you need to know, as well as some examples. So if you do want to use one of those contains in your custom criteria, you've got an example there that you can use. So if you do use that custom filter option, and it's one that you're going to use a lot, you can actually save that custom filter by clicking the little save disk icon. And then if you want to recall that later, you just click the little down recall button until the custom criteria shows up, and then you can hit enter or click that apply button and search. Pretty handy.
Jason, I'm going to jump in here. A couple of things. We do see your mouse, so if you want to kind of hover that mouse over something, the staff will, or your attendees see it. Right. The other thing I would just say, folks, is that when we get into that custom criteria, generally you probably would be contacting your tech to get a magical formula on that, and then once you get it, you can save it in the monkey see, monkey do for future use. So. All right. While we're here, Sharon, any questions so far? We doing okay?
We are doing just fine.
All righty. Carry on. Carry on.
All right. So once you put in your search criteria and you click the search button or hit enter, you're going to be presented with a list of the results that it found. If you want to go ahead and log on as that student, all you have to do is simply click that log on button, which is the right arrow. Click it's an arrow pointing at a door, and that will log you in as that student. Now you're still going to be logged in as the staff member, but you're also going to be logged in as the student via that staff member. And you can tell this looking at the title bar at the top. If you're using our default templates, you'll be able to see the student that you have logged in identified by this icon. And then again, if you have the latest templates, this will probably already be there to show what staff is logged in. Otherwise, this can be added to your templates as well. Again, just get with your technician and they can help you get that set. So once you click that log on button, you will now have another screen that shows up, and this will be on the right-hand side of the page. You're still going to see the staff web options on the left-hand side, but now you're going to have the student options because you're logged in as that student. From here, we can enroll in a course. If you have the Quick Pick module, you can click that to go ahead and do the Quick Pick registration for that student. Awesome module. Again, if you guys don't have that and you have OLLI programs, or you just want to have everything on one big page and kind of a one-stop shop, Quick Pick is the latest, greatest thing. So get with Chuck and Sharon to talk about that. You can also edit their name record, view their registration history, or you have the option to log them off so that you can log a different student on. So let's look at some of these in a bit more detail. Before we do that, talking about passwords. When you are logged in as a staff member, you're not going to be using the student's password at any point in time. So you wouldn't be able to go to the home page and then, because you're logged in as staff, go ahead and use the student login, their email address, and log in from there. It won't let you do that. You do have to log in via that manager web page. On the same token, when you're creating an account, if you're creating a new student account, you're not going to be putting in a password. What that's going to do is allow the person to create a password when they do log in for the first time. What they will do is use the default or the public password to log in, as well as their email address. And then ACEweb will prompt them and say, hey, we don't allow blank passwords. Please create one. before you proceed. Okay, so back to our options here. Once you're logged in as a student, the first one is going to be enrolling a student in a course. For step one, you basically click that first link, click enroll in a course, and that takes you to basically what the student would see. It's at this point, options 2 through 5 here, you're seeing what the student sees when they're logged in. They're going to browse around the site. You can look at the groups, your course groups. You can look at courses by instructor or by location. It doesn't really matter, but you're going to be doing the same process that they would be doing if they had logged in and did this themselves. So again, this is a great tutorial. You know, if you have a registration desk at a conference, or you're running like a kiosk in your office, if you need to walk people through the actual process that they're going to be doing, this is a great tool to be able to do that and show them exactly what they're going to be seeing, or see what they're going to be seeing. So again, 2 through 5 is what the student's going to see. 6 is going to give you some extra options because you're logged in as a staff member. And just for registration inception here, you can also, as a staff member, log in as a student and then proxy register someone as that student, and have that student pay for the course. So it can get pretty crazy there, but that's really handy when you're talking about household members, family memberships, things like that. But you do need to have proxy registration enabled for that enroll someone else button to even show up. Keep that in mind. So once you get to the final step and you've picked all their courses, you've selected any supplemental data capture things, you've entered that in, and you go to the enrollment cart and you say, okay, it's time to pay. The main option would be to pay by a credit card, which is going to be the exact same way if they were logged in. It's going to use whatever payment gateway you have configured. So if you've got Authorize.net or PayPal, it would be the same way. If you're running a registration desk at a conference and they say, I want to register for this course and these workshops, here's my credit card, here's my info, you can basically take that card and make the payment as if you were them. So that's pretty handy. This also gives you the ability to mark this as a cash or a check payment, mark it as paid. So if you are collecting money at the door, this is the one thing that as a staff member gives you access to. We do have some future plans for being able to do the billing option, so to create an invoice for something. That's not in just yet, but that's going to give you the billing option even on courses that don't have allow billing enabled in their published properties. So some other student options when you are logged in as a student is you can edit their name records. So if you need to make changes to their name address or any of their demographic fields, interest codes, things like that, you can do that through this option. Again, we talked about family memberships. It's a pretty robust option. A lot of times people get stuck and they're not sure, okay, well, do I log in as myself or do I create another account for them? This is another way that you can do this over the phone with them and give them a hands-on tutorial or walkthrough on creating those household members. Another awesome option is the ability to view their registration history. You can also click the payment status button, and that's going to show any unpaid balances that they may have. You can also pay those the same way that you would pay for a normal course registration. So when you're looking at these options here, you don't have to fill a date range in those boxes. You can leave those blank and it's going to show all the results. But you can filter that down by just their registrations, all the registrations that they've entered. So it's going to include household members and other proxy registrations, or just registrations for a particular person. So this is kind of a way that they can get their own little online transcript. Okay, so moving on from the student options, we get into the instructor options. So we've had super instructor access for quite a while. As a staff member, you have super instructor access, although really it should be called something like super duper instructor access, because you're going to get things that a normal instructor would not actually see. This comes about, we heard you guys when we found that you were creating faux instructor records for your staff members just so they could log in on ACEweb and see course rosters and be able to do these instructor type things. but that kind of gets garbage in, garbage out. You know, you're adding instructors that aren't instructors to courses, and that kind of convolutes things because they start showing up in different places that you don't want them. So again, you know, we heard what you were saying, and we think this option is going to help a lot of you out in a number of different ways. So once you click that course view roster instructor options link from the main staff web page, you're going to see this the screen with lots of different filter options and criteria here. So let's talk about what some of those options are. So Super Instructor Access allows you to search for your courses. So kind of a three-step process here. You pick your filter criteria, you know, whether you want the course title to start with or contain, and then you put your value in. That field there has a number of different options. Let's see if we can give a little drop down here. So again, we click the lookup course, view roster, instructor options, and that takes us to this page here. So again, our different fields that we can search on, you've got title, course code, the begin date, coordinator, department, instructor name, and category. Quite a number of different things you can filter down here. If you select one of the date range options, well, it should be giving us a date range, maybe not. Well, either way, let's go back to our slideshow here. I think that gives us a better example. All right, so you select your filter criteria and you pick your different filter options. And I do want to mention here, if you've got a large database, especially if you're going to be using some of the options like showing inactive or canceled courses, it is a good idea to use that date range filter. Okay, here, yeah, it shows. So if you want to do the is within, then you can enter a time period like 5 days, 2 weeks, a year, so on and so forth. But to narrow your search results down, you definitely want to put in a date range if you're going to be including a lot of these options to show a whole bunch of different courses. Otherwise, you're going to have a very, very long list to scroll through, and we know your time is valuable. So once you set your criteria and you click search, you'll be presented with the search results. And from here, we're going to kind of talk about a lot of these things independently here, but this is the basic view that you're going to have. It's going to show you your courses that it found and the gradebook options. If you had selected the include gradebook for workshops and lessons, it's also going to show those courses down in the gradebook section. And to kind of go over in depth on what these filter options mean, the top checkbox, show current and upcoming courses, is fairly straightforward. It's going to be showing your courses that haven't started yet, haven't ended yet. That's going to only include active courses. The second option here, include online membership and donation courses. Now this is one where you're not often going to find yourself needing to see rosters or enter grades or attendance for these types of courses. So if you know that you're definitely not needing to search for one of those types, if you uncheck that, that's going to make that list, you know, quite a bit shorter. So keep that in mind. Including inactive courses, again, be careful with this one. If you have a whole bunch of courses that are inactive and not archived, and you check this box, you could end up with a really, really long list, especially if you're not also using that date range filter. The include gradebook links to course workshops and lessons. Now this is going to allow your workshop and lesson type courses to also show in that gradebook list. So if you do have a workshop course that has 15 different workshops, that's adding 15 different more entries in that list. So again, if you know that the course that you're looking for is not a workshop course, then leave that option unchecked, and that'll keep that to a more succinct set of results. Now this fifth one here, show selected courses for all instructors. You do have to have this checked, and the reason is because we're using the super instructor routine, but you're not actually an instructor on any of the courses. You're a staff member, so you do have to check this to be able to see courses that have instructors. Now, include canceled courses and registrations. This is an option that is only available to staff members. Super instructors do not have access to this. And again, I want you to be careful with this one. We'll talk more about this later. But this is an option that you typically wouldn't check unless there was very specific reason to do so. And the last option shows up after you've already actually searched for something. If you want to refine your results, there will be a checkbox that says keep these filter criteria, and it'll show you what you searched for previously. Okay, so you've set your criteria, you've clicked search, and then you have your list of courses. All you have to do to get to the course information page is to click that list button. And if we go back to show you what I'm talking about here, look up course. We want to check this, and we'll say get courses. So this list button is going to get you to the main details page. So if we were to click this, that's where it's going to take you. So we'll go back to our slide here. So the default tab that you start at is the rosters tab. This is going to show you your basic roster information for the course. Now, the columns that show up here are defined by the roster fields INI settings. So again, this is in your ACEweb INI. If you don't have access to that, your student manager administrator can help you out, or your ACEweb tech can help you out. But that controls what columns actually show up in this rosters tab. Now, this setting can also be overridden with a custom roster field that is done on a course-by-course basis in Student Manager. So if you do have particular courses that maybe you need to be showing an extra field like an emergency contact or something like that, that can be overridden without having to add it globally to all of your course rosters. Now, if you chose the include canceled records in your criteria, they will show up in the roster listing here. You'll see a new column called canceled, and it will show yes down at the bottom. Now note that even though those records show up in this list, they do not impact that enrollment count of 8. It's only going to be counting the actual non-canceled registrations. So our second tab over is the course details tab, and this is where you get that extra information that an instructor normally would not see. So some of that includes the enrollment counts. You're going to be able to see how many people are enrolled, waitlisted, or canceled. It's going to show you the status of the course, whether it's active, inactive, locked. It's going to show you the instructors, and it's also going to show you what fees are set up on that course record. So it doesn't show in our example here, but it will show optional fees, inventory fees, things like that as well. It'll just show them in the different type. And then further down on that page, you get some more course information. It's going to give you the link to the course status page. This link will work even if the course is not published. So if you've got an upcoming course that isn't published yet and you want to preview what the student's going to actually see, this is one of those ways that you can get to that course. You can also do that from Student Manager on the ACEweb Info tab, that preview course status link. This does the same thing. It shows us our course notes and our course description down at the bottom of the page there. The final tab is going to be your Tools tab. This is where you're going to be able to print your roster. You click that button and it sends it basically right to whatever your printer is. So again, if you're at home on the couch with a laptop and you click that button, it's going to use whatever printer is set as the default on your computer that you're using. Saving to Excel, you can have that export it to an Excel spreadsheet. Again, you will need to have some type of an Excel viewer to be able to view that file once you do that. And then finally, you can view the attendance sheet and have the option to print it from there. So if you've got your attendance tracking done with your instructors and you need to get them attendance or sign-off sheets, you or they, if they have super instructor access or just instructor access, can do those right here from ACEweb. Your other options down here are to be able to email all the students in the class, and we will talk a little bit more about those coming up here. Okay, so again, here's where the kind of the warning on including canceled records, that search criteria comes into play. If you choose that option and your course has canceled registrations, when you click those email all students options, it's going to include those canceled students in the list. So if you are emailing them to make sure to bring their hiking boots on the third day, you may be inadvertently sending that to a person that canceled their registration. So just keep that in mind there. The email option through the staff web access doesn't have access to your student manager database, and it's not going to use any of the mail merge templates or anything like that. It's just a simple mail to link. And so it's going to use whatever your browser has set as the default email client. So if you have Outlook, typically if you click a mail to link in a browser, it's going to pop up a new email message, and it's going to put all those students in the blind carbon copy field so that your students aren't seeing all of the other students in the class. I will also mention that you can email the instructors on a course just by clicking their email address back on that course details tab. All right, so if you're clicking the email all students links and you want to include an extra email address or a person that's not in the class, you do need to manually enter that into whatever email client your browser is bringing up. Sometimes if you have a whole bunch of students in a class, there's only so many characters that you can have in those mail to links, and so if it detects that you've got too many, it's going to chop those up into different groups. So you'll have to email group 1, 2, 3, and so on and so forth separately. If you do need to just email one student, again, similar to emailing the instructor, you just go to the roster tab and then click right on their email address, and it will bring up that same send an email option. All right, so moving on, we've got the gradebook. This is going to give your staff members access to enter grades for the courses by clicking the gradebook button back on our original course listing. So to give you kind of a live example here, if we go back one page and we look down here, so here's our courses that were returned. And then down further is a separate box that has the gradebook options. So if we wanted to edit the gradebook for, let's say, an art appreciation class and change the grade of a student. So we could do S+ for Chuck. You simply enter in the grade or the hours or the credits that you want to change, and you click Save Changes. Now this is going to pull in the whatever information is already stored on that registration record. So if they have default hours already filled in, it's going to show you that right there. You're not going to be overwriting anything that's already done in Student Manager. And you'll see here it says data may be entered up to 30 days after the course has ended. This is a setting called Gradebook Lag, and that can be configured on your instructor.htm template. You can set that for whatever value you want. If you want your instructors to have more time to be able to go in and enter grades, or your staff to have more time to enter grades, you can modify that setting. Just keep in mind that it is the same setting for your instructors as it is for your staff members. So there isn't a way to set those individually. So again, you modify your grade or your hours, click Save Changes, and that's going to save that to that registration record from wherever you're at. All right, and finally, if you've got the attendance tracking module, you're going to also see a track button in your main course listing. So if you do want to track attendance for a course, you click that track button and it takes you to the attendance tracker screen. Now you'll only see this option if you do have that attendance tracking module. And the other thing to note is if the attendance record hasn't been created on the course itself, you're going to get a message saying that there are no attendance records for this particular course. So make sure that the attendance has been created in Student Manager before you attempt to record that through ACEweb Staff Web Access. So once you click that track button, it's going to give you the kind of similar to the attendance tracking screen in Student Manager. You can fill in the default hours for that session, or you can override that, put in whatever hours you want on a student-by-student basis. You can choose to do it just for a particular date, or you can have it do it for all dates. If your instructors wait until the very end of the class and then enter all the attendance records at once, that's an option that they have there. And that wraps up our last feature. So moving on, what questions did we have pop up, if any?
Well, Jason, we have been answering a few questions individually, but I'm not seeing any questions. You've been very thorough, and I am guessing people are anxious to try to set this up and get in there and play with it a little bit. We did have somebody that's wanting to know, can you show what the attendance roster sheet looks like? Can you go to your live site and show the attendance
Sure.
roster?
Let's see if I've got a course that has attendance. So back here, close form. Let's see. Now this is our kind of our sandbox database. So yeah, so here's the message that you would get if the course doesn't have attendance tracking records. I'm trying to see which of these may have. Well, actually, to clarify, is this the screen that they're talking about? What does the attendance tracking screen look like?
The attendance roster sheet. And
okay. I'm sorry. I totally missed that. So yes. So you would go into whichever course.
Yeah.
We're going to list, and then we go to the Tools tab, and then attendance sheet. So this is the one where you can view the attendance sheet from here. And again, this should be mentioned that this is somewhat different than the attendance module attendance tracking. This attendance sheet is just for, if you're doing the normal, send this out to the instructor, have the student sign off or check the box. This is separate than the attendance tracking module where you're actually doing a live manipulation of that data through ACEweb. This is the more of the printout and hand to your instructor option. So this is the view mode, and then you do have the option to print it. This just brings up whatever your printer is, and then this option will save that basically just as a spreadsheet.
And Jason, I am making assumptions here, but when they are logged in remotely or through ACEweb, staff, payment processing, and everything works just the same when they are applying a payment.
Correct. The payment gateway is going to work just like if they were a student. They will add all the courses to their cart, click the payment gateway button. That will take them to their third-party payment gateway site where they would enter the card information, submit it, and then the authorization would be sent back to the student manager database, and then you'd be taken back to your registration confirmation page.
Very good. Well, I am sure that I am sure that as they get in and try this out and play around, they may have other questions, and you all know how to find us so that we can answer those questions for you. And I don't see any others right now, Jason. So if you can go to the next screen there. Next month, we are going to welcome spring. I know I am going to welcome spring. And so we're going to do kind of our annual spring cleaning session on database cleanup. And that's on March 15th. And AJ's going to walk you through some tips to get that database in tip-top shape. And I want to remind you as well that conference registration is up and open. And by now, you should have all had our February newsletter in your inbox. If you haven't, take a look around for that. And there's a list of some of the topics that we'll be covering at conference and some of our customer presenters that will be on site. This lovely lady that you see on the screen right now is Brittany, and she's from Auburn University at Montgomery. She's one of our ACEweb champion educators, and she will be in Atlanta, and she will be talking about how their unit is using the staff web access. So it's one thing to kind of get through the how to do it, but it's always good to get together with others and talk about how it is being used. And she's going to do a session on that, and I know that she would welcome some group comments and some sharing of how things are done there. So be sure to get registered. Our early registration rate is going to expire on March 2nd, so get that registration in and use your scholarship funds for that. So keep watching. We'll send an announcement to the listserv when the final agenda is ready. But like I said, in the newsletter, you'll see several good topics covered. So Chuck, did you have anything to add, or Jason, before we
No, I've been chatting with folks online, having fun with conversations, but I'm good. Jason, excellent job. And Brittany, we're looking forward to seeing you in a couple, 3 months. So.
All right. Well, we appreciate you spending time with us, and have a great rest of your day, and enjoy your upcoming weekend, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.